So this theme will now take a little bit of a different course and now start to focus much more on cloud infrastructure. So one of the things we've observed is that Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform, as we brought this offering to market, we've realized that it needed to respond to changes in the business. And some of the changes are shown on this chart. Fundamentally, application workloads are changing. Traditional workloads, we talked about a little bit this morning. Traditional workloads reside on a single large machine. They really are architected to maintain nearly 100% uptime. And the applications scale up. Very large applications on large systems. And the way you scale these systems up is you add additional CPUs, additional memory, and additional storage to drive the performance and capability of these scale-up systems. That's the traditional workload. The cloud workload is evolving to what we would describe as smaller applications that are typically constructed with redundancy. So you have multiple of them across multiple virtual machines. If one of these fails, it's not a problem. You just remove it, and you start up another. And typically, fault tolerance is built into the application architecture because you have multiple of these running. So you have 100 Apache web server VMs running, and they're serving all of your web traffic. If one of these drops, you've got 99 running. So the application availability is built, or the fault tolerance is built into the application architecture. And then, of course, applications scale out rather than up. You need more compute resource. You add more server capacity by provisioning additional small-scale servers, separate servers, not large-scale inside of a box, but rather scaling out two-socket systems ad infinitum. You're also faced with these are really typically stateless machines, stateless applications or VMs. Not really being critical, again, if one of them drops or dies. You simply start up another one or fail over to one of the ones that are up and running. Versus the stateful machines in the traditional workloads, if one of these system crashes, big problems. So some of the challenges with traditional infrastructure is that the data that we're now faced with is we're producing such volumes of data. I mentioned all the devices that we're all using. Well, those are driving significant data challenges and storage requirements. And the traditional application architectures and traditional infrastructure cannot support the data that's being generated from these, these numbers of devices that we're driving. Scaling up, as I described, more memory, more compute, and more storage does not necessarily respond to the data that's being collected and saved. So scaling out is the only way to approach this. All of these devices are, that are coming online that we're all using, they're pinging these systems so readily and so heavily that there are too many service requests growing exponentially. Scaling out is the only way to address these multiple service requests. Scaling up a single system will not allow you to maintain service levels to the customers requiring access to these applications. And then, kind of related to all of this, the applications that were written in the traditional workload sense, these monolithic single-instance apps on a single large server, are just not designed to scale up to the straining and user scalability requirements that we've been talking about. So why OpenStack? Well, OpenStack, the way I describe OpenStack for customers is that for someone who wants Amazon Web Services-like capabilities in terms of that public cloud, but having the ability to use that inside their data center on their terms, in their control, this is what OpenStack can provide for them. So it brings those public cloud-like capabilities to your data center, massively available scale-out capacity, thousands, tens of thousands, and perhaps moving up to hundreds of thousands of virtual machines provided on this infrastructure. But it is flexible, customizable, modular, and allows you to also interoperate readily with it. We're going to talk about the architecture of OpenStack and how it allows exactly that. And then one of the important notes overall, too, is as Red Hat is so committed to open source development, this provides several benefits. one of the primary benefits that it provides is the fact that the community is developing these features, so it's innovating very rapidly. And it's therefore able to innovate much more rapidly than any single company can drive. Second, though, and very important, is that because the innovation is rooted in the market, these are requirements being driven by companies, including Red Hat, who value and put priority on certain features. You're immediately getting market validation of a certain new feature. So if it's happening, if there are people working on it in the upstream community, if there are people committing to it, it's because there's a need already identified for it. Often enterprise software companies develop features in a vacuum, not really having a good sense of whether the market needs or values that feature. But with open source-based development, those features are immediately validated. So what is OpenStack? OpenStack is a cloud services framework. It is comprised of several modular building blocks that are shown on this chart here. And it allows you to build a scalable cloud infrastructure, but also a customizable cloud infrastructure based on these building blocks. The building blocks include Nova as an application to manage your compute resources, several options to manage your storage, depending on whether you're managing block, image, or object storage. Neutron as a networking service. New projects like Heat and Ceilometer to do orchestration and telemetry respectively, an identity service with Keystone, and then a dashboard in the form of Horizon to help manage these various services underneath. Now, important is that you don't need to use all of these together. You can decide if you're doing a compute service, you can build out Nova, network, with Neutron, and maybe if you need identity services, you use Keystone, but you can customize and build out the framework specifically. Another important side note, these are all individual Python applications. They're all written in Python. They still run on an operating system, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And then those operating systems run on physical systems. So this is the framework as it stands. Now, why Red Hat? So we talked just a moment ago about the fact that these are Python applications that run on an operating system. Well, it turns out that operating system, in terms of the way OpenStack's been built, tested, deployed, being built on top of Linux. It's an open source, Linux is an open source operating system, readily available, highly innovative, highly customizable, the perfect candidate to work in conjunction with OpenStack. But ultimately, all of these applications still run on hardware. They need access to hardware resources. They need access to the libraries and runtimes, like any application does. They need an access to a hypervisor, like KVM and other system services. The operating system provides that vehicle. And today, again, Linux has been the predominant one. Well, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, has now emerged as a very viable, leading, and valuable approach to use as the operating system underlying OpenStack. And together, we've brought that in a single offering called Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack Platform. And what this is a pre-engineered, pre-integrated, tested solution from Red Hat and supported, optimizing the OpenStack offering, coming directly out of the OpenStack Foundation, but tying it with the 12-year-old successful, stable, and enterprise-grade Red Hat Enterprise Linux platform into a single offering. Now, why is it important? Well, the OpenStack cloud, as we talked about, has several core cloud services tied in. Nova, Glance, Swift, and Neutron. Glance and Swift being some of your storage modules. But you still need to plug in these to all interact with third-party hardware systems, whether they're network cards, storage arrays, or others. So you can imagine now what we're painting as a picture here is a complex set of interactions between an application and other pieces of hardware that provide those network access, storage access, and compute resources. So those dependencies are critical, complex, require tight integration, and require a lot of testing and ideally support. So ultimately, the combination of and integration with Red Hat Enterprise Linux makes a lot of sense. So some of the examples specifically of how how and why the integration is so important. Virtualization, how the guests, the Red Hat Enterprise Linux guests perform, and how reliable are they? How do you achieve guest isolation between the virtual machines that run side by side on the hypervisor in KVM? So, using SE-Linux to do that secure isolation. How do you achieve networking performance through tools like Open vSwitch, new emerging offerings, but still needing a fair bit of tuning and frankly, enhancement. So Open vSwitch for the networking. Storage, how do you make sure that the device drivers plugging into those third-party storage arrays are working correctly? The full ecosystem, how do you ensure that the application set you need to run on top of OpenStack is tested, certified, and supported? So again, the pairing of OpenStack and Red Hat Enterprise Linux makes just a ton of sense for customers who are looking to go beyond the proof of concept stage, but actually move this type of a private cloud infrastructure into production, and who value the security, the performance, and stability that these enterprise-grade systems bring. So in concert with that, for the last year and a half, and since I think April of 2013, we announced the Red Hat OpenStack Cloud Infrastructure Partner Network. And in this partner network are a collection of different types of partners. They include ISVs providing applications. They include OEMs who are providing the underlying compute platforms, independent hardware vendors who provide some of those third-party network cards, storage plugins and arrays, et cetera, maybe cache, flash, and memory. System integrators and cloud service providers, hosting and managed service providers, and ultimately channel partners. So we're taking a very broad view of this partner network. And in that network, since the last year and a half, we've built over 200 partners. We've put 900 certified solutions into a marketplace around OpenStack. We have over 4,000 Red Hat Enterprise Linux compute servers that are certified, over 13,000 applications that are certified on top of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, and also a large catalog of Windows certified applications that run on KVM. Now let me also give you a snapshot of why, how we're taking a leadership position in the OpenStack community. Well, what you see here are some data points collected by a third party called Bitergia. There's a website you can go to and validate these numbers. But when you look at the overall commits per company or closed tickets per company, in the last release of of OpenStack with Icehouse, and this is from April of last year, maybe April or May of last year, when Icehouse was brought to market. Red Hat, far and away, was the lead in commits and closed tickets as a company, measured as a company, almost 2-to-1 compared to the nearest neighboring company. And this shows our commitment to not only drive innovation, but to put our money where our mouth is. So we're putting money and resource into the development of these particular projects that we talked about earlier, things like Neutron, Keystone, Horizon, Nova, et cetera. So we're driving innovation in the OpenStack community. And why this matters for you as customers, there's several reasons. Number one, because we are intimate now with what's being developed in the product itself, when issues arise, bugs, security vulnerabilities, we are best equipped to understand how to go fix it and how to drive the acceptance of that particular patch. So we have the leadership and the kind of strength and credibility to go drive these because we're so heavily involved in leading the OpenStack development. Other reasons why it makes sense is because we can now drive feature requests. As leaders and committers at the project level, feature requests coming from you, our customers, from partners, and things that we also validate as being important, we can drive more credibly and more pragmatically. So the influence and driving the agenda for development in the community is part of the byproduct of the leadership we've established. I've actually talked about this already. So supporting customers, driving new features, influencing the strategy and direction, and then also there's an important angle here with our partners, because as we bring partners online, and if we find that a particular device driver does not work with one of our storage vendors, we can help fix and drive the improvement and the change to that device driver, based on the partner's needs. So this whole aspect of why we get involved, and what the benefits are to you as a customer are very important. And ultimately, Red Hat has proven why and how maintaining an enterprise-grade distribution of a product like Red Hat Enterprise Linux over a stable 10-year life cycle that we offer with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, why that proof point and that approach is now going to be validated and replicated as what we do with OpenStack. It's what customers expect from Red Hat, and it's what we are good at. Here's some of the things we're doing on the services side. So several training offerings, all relevant to the OpenStack offering. So Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization Administration, OpenStack Administration, Red Hat Cloud Forms, driving to several certifications. One, a Red Hat Certified Virtualization Administrator. Another, a Certificate of Expertise in OpenStack Infrastructure as a Service. And also several offerings on the consulting side, accelerators, as well as an architecture service offered by Red Hat Consulting as services to you, our customers. Let's talk briefly about a few customer successes. So the National Computational Infrastructure in Australia, similar to the story I told you about CERN, NCI has also developed and deployed Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform to respond to the aggressive compute needs and ever-changing compute needs of their scientists. So they're looking for a system and a set of infrastructure that can respond to growth in their computing needs, but also the variability week to week in those needs. But ultimately, they want an offering that's supported by an enterprise like Red Hat. They want a life cycle that they can understand and have trust and faith that over that life cycle, fixes, patches, security vulnerabilities will be addressed. And ultimately, they want to understand, how do they do upgrades and how do they maintain those security certifications that are important. So NCI is a great customer testimonial. Another one that Damien spoke about this morning, Nanyang Technological University here in Singapore. They deployed Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform. In addition, used CloudForms, Red Hat CloudForms on top to manage the infrastructure. Together, this offering is described as Red Hat Cloud Infrastructure. And this was really addressing several needs that NTU had. One need, being able to scale to the requirements and of their student body. So kind of, again, variable needs for compute resources, so the elasticity of demand. And secondly, how did they really achieve just efficiency through their resource provisioning? And then last, but very important, how did they tap into what we describe as the open hybrid cloud? How do they scale between existing on-premise resources using Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform and public cloud Amazon-style services? And Red Hat CloudForms allowed them to scale between the two, back and forth. So realizing the vision of the open hybrid cloud. So in summary, why Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform? So again, you're getting the benefits of a rapid, innovative, open source community in the form of OpenStack, but bringing that together with the experience and know-how from Red Hat, industry hardened, enterprise code, co-engineered and pre-integrated, pre-tested with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, a 12-year-old mature enterprise class mission critical operating system, a global support organization behind it, the investment and establishment of a global ecosystem, providing the whole product and suite of solutions that OpenStack needs to run and operate. Also driving certifications, training, consulting services as well around the product and offering to ensure that there are professionals trained and skilled in the support and deployment and management of this offering. And then, of course, integrated with the remainder of the portfolio from Red Hat. CloudForms, Red Hat Enterprise Virtualization, Red Hat Enterprise Linux, we've talked about, of course. And then, as you saw recently, a few months ago, we acquired a company called InkTank that brought into Red Hat's family the Ceph offering, which is the most popular storage module for use with OpenStack. So just to bring another validation and perspective to what we're doing, several of the analysts in the market have weighed in to our strategy over the last year and a half. People like IDC, and again, colleagues of Meyer Sani who spoke this morning, talk about the fact that we're doing for OpenStack what we did successfully for Linux. And a model and an approach that has been proven, we're applying it to an area where we think there's great need and great opportunity for you, our customers. David Linthicum from Cloud Technology Partners, validating what we're doing. And then also someone in the press really saying that we're legitimizing OpenStack for the mainline business. There are 3 ways you can get OpenStack from Red Hat. You can do a 90-day evaluation and get Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform that way. You can look at the URL on the slide here and see how to get that. You can also buy 2 commercially supported offerings that include OpenStack. One is Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform, which we've talked about. And then the second way, which I alluded to in the NTU case study, is to buy Red Hat Cloud Infrastructure, which couples Red Hat Enterprise Linux OpenStack platform with our award-winning Red Hat CloudForms cloud management console and application on top, allowing you to realize the open hybrid cloud managing between Red Hat infrastructure, VMware, Microsoft, and the public cloud, like Amazon Web Services. And you can learn more by going to redhat.com/OpenStack. And with that, I will thank you and look forward to talking to you at 4 o'clock with the next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Coggin.